All right, let's talk electric motorcycles. We're going to go way beyond the hype and the marketing slogans today to get into what it's actually like to own one of these things. We're talking the real-world grit, the problems, and the frankly brilliant solutions that riders themselves are figuring out.
So, here's what we're going to get into. We'll start with that classic dilemma every rider faces. Then, we'll look at how owners are squeezing out more range and cutting down their charge times. We're also going to unpack this weird thing called magic charging and wrap up with why these owners are so much more than just customers. They're pioneers.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the core feeling of riding an electric bike. On one hand, you've got this insane, silent rush of power, just pure thrill. But on the other hand, you've got one eye constantly glued to the battery meter.
And wow, this quote from a new rider on the Man Cave Moto channel just hits the nail on the head, right? It's that feeling, range anxiety. It is the #1 thing that messes with your head when you're thinking about going electric. It's that little voice asking, am I really going to make it home?
But here's a crazy thought. What if that range meter, the very thing causing all your stress, is just plain wrong? Let's dig into our first big problem and see how riders are literally teaching their bikes to find miles they never knew they had.
See, the secret isn't in the battery itself, but in its little electronic brain, the Battery Management System, or BMS. Its whole job is to act like a fuel gauge. But, sometimes, over time, that brain gets a little fuzzy, and it starts to forget how much energy is actually in the battery.
So, if the bike's brain doesn't know how big its own battery is anymore, how do you fix it? How do you kind of jog its memory? Well, it turns out you don't need a trip to the dealer. The community, on their own, figured out a super simple trick.
And this is where it gets really cool. This simple, 3-step dance was figured out by riders like Hans Hacks. What it does is force the BMS to see the absolute bottom and the absolute top of the battery's capacity, all in one go. And just like that, riders were finding huge chunks of lost range. The power was there the whole time.
Okay, so you've reset your battery, you've got your range back, awesome. But eventually, you gotta stop. And that brings us to the next big hurdle for a lot of owners, just how long it takes to charge.
You've basically got two paths you can take here. You can just stick with the stock charger that comes with a bike. It's simple, but man, it's slow. We're talking 8, maybe 9 hours for a full charge. Or you can jump into the DIY world with aftermarket chargers, like the Elcon unit you'll see people talking about on the forums. It's a bit of work, but you can slash your charge times in half or even more.
But that kind of begs the question, right? Do you really need the absolute fastest charger you can possibly get, especially for your daily routine at home?
And this quote just perfectly sums up the other side of the coin. The Channel Technology Connections makes this brilliant point that having your own reliable charger at home, even if it's not super fast, is way more convenient than hunting for a public fast charger. Waking up every single morning with a 100% full battery, that's the real game changer.
And, a little bit of trivia here that's actually super important to understand. That box on the wall at a charging station, it's not actually the charger. It's called an EVSE, and it's basically a really smart power outlet that talks to the real charger, which is already built right into your bike.
All right, let's get into one of the weirdest and, frankly, most worrying issues that owners have come across. It's a problem that sounds like a good thing, but it's really not. The community calls it magic charging.
Seriously, picture this. You're riding, maybe on the freeway, and your battery percentage is just dropping like a stone. You pull over, you stop for 5 minutes, and when you turn the bike back on, bam! You've suddenly gained 30% of your battery back. That's not magic, my friend. That's a sign something is very, very wrong.
Guys like YouTuber Daniel Montero started documenting this stuff, and the symptoms were just bizarre. Your battery level becomes totally unreliable. A long trip is a total gamble because you have no idea what your real range is. You just can't trust the gauge anymore.
So what in the world was going on? Well, after a ton of digging and data sharing by the community itself, they helped figure it out. It was a physical defect inside some of the battery packs from the factory, basically a bad connection that would act up as the battery's temperature changed.
And once the problem was finally nailed down, the fix was pretty straightforward, but a big one. Zero Motorcycles started replacing the faulty battery packs under warranty. It was a great example of the manufacturer actually listening to the detective work done by its own riders.
And all of this, the range trick, the charger mods, the magic charging investigation, it all really points to one central idea. When you're an early adopter of tech like this, you're not just a customer. You're part of the R&D team. And what's sprung up from that is this just incredible support system
all built by writers. You've got these super detailed forum threads, YouTube videos that walk you through complicated repairs, and even this amazing writer-made encyclopedia called the Unofficial Zero Manual.
I mean, this quote from their own homepage just says everything you need to know. This is not some corporate manual. This is a pure grassroots effort from the people who actually own and ride these bikes every day. They're the real experts.
So it leaves you with this one last question, doesn't it? When you get an electric motorcycle right now, are you just buying a new way to get around? Or are you signing up to be part of the evolution, to be a pioneer helping to figure out the future of riding?